Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Front Royal special meeting to order this evening for Monday, December the 7th, 2020. First thing tonight, I want to welcome Steve Hicks, our new town manager. And if we can, any of us be of any service to you, we'd be more than glad to sit down and discuss whatever you want to discuss with you. So welcome to the board, and hope everything works out great for you.
Thank you. I look forward to working here in Front Royal, and I appreciate council having trust in me and confidence in doing the job. I met a few of the staff and look forward to meeting with them more. And again, Matt's been very helpful. So I want to let everyone know that. Very helpful.
Okay, with that, we'll start our meeting. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mayor T-Wall,
Here.
Vice Mayor Seelot,
Here.
Councilman Cockrell,
Here.
Councilman Gillespie,
Here, thank you.
Councilman Holloway,
Here.
Councilman Meza,
Here.
Councilman Thompson, Sets.
Okay, the first item tonight is a public hearing to receive public input for exemption from the disconnection ban included in the Commonwealth of Virginia budget bill, and approve the information provided is accurate. I'd like to open the public hearing this evening in regards to this. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak?
No one signed up.
No one signed up?
No, sir.
You check out the hallway.
Yes, check it out.
Good. Mine stays in my car, Gary. Mine stays in my car.
Anybody?
No, sir, no.
Okay. Anybody want to speak here this evening that hasn't signed up? Anybody want to speak? Third time. Anybody want to speak? Public hearing is closed. I'll turn it over to council.
Mr. Mayor, I move the council approve that the information provided to town council is accurate for the town of Front Royal utility accounts receivable ranges exceeding the 1% threshold of the utilities operating revenues qualifying for an exemption from the disconnection ban included in the Commonwealth of Virginia budget bill.
Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? No discussion? Can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Seelot,
Yes.
Councilman Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilman Gillespie,
Yes.
Councilman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman Meza,
Yes.
Councilman Thompson's absent.
Motion carried. Third item this evening is another public hearing to take action on a loan from the United Bank to finance a debt obligation. Before we open the meeting, I'd like to have the summary read, please.
Council's requested to approve a loan from the United Bank of Virginia Banking Corporation to the town of Front Royal, Virginia in the maximum and original principal amount of $8,483,001.15. The proceeds of such loan shall be used to refinance the debt obligation evidenced by that certain promissory note dated October 31st, 2018, as amended, modified, extended, or renewed, made by the Industrial Development Authority of the Town of Front Royal and the County of Warren, Virginia, also known as the Economic Development Authority of the Town of Front Royal and the County of Warren, Virginia, payable to the order of United Bank and to pay certain costs of issuance in connection with the loan, all in accordance with the loan documents reviewed by the Front Royal Town Council.
Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
No, sir.
I'd like to open our public hearing this evening. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak this evening on this item? Anyone would like to speak?
No, sir.
Anyone would like to speak? No one here to speak. Public hearing is closed. I'll turn it over to council.
Mr. Mayor, I move that town council will approve a loan from United Bank, a Virginia banking corporation, to the town of Front Royal, Virginia, in the maximum and original principal amount of $8,483,001.15. The proceeds of such loan shall be used to refinance the debt obligation evidenced by that certain promissory note dated October the 31st, 2018, as amended, modified, extended, or renewed, made by the Industrial Development Authority of the Town of Front Royal and the County of Warren, Virginia, also known as the Economic Development Authority of the Town of Front Royal and the County of Warren, Virginia, payable to the order of United Bank and to pay certain costs of issuance in connection with the loan, all in accordance with the loan documents reviewed by the Front Royal Town Council.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion here this evening? There's one question I have, Matt. Where do we stand on the 2 months of interest? October, or November, December?
Yeah, the 1 month of interest was part of the original, this amount was part of this loan. The second month, United Bank is not assessing us that
Oh, great.
fee. Now, how they're handling it with the EDA is unknown. Is that fair, Doug?
As far as I know, that we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Seelock,
Yes.
Councilman Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilman Gillespie,
Yes.
Councilman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman Meza,
Yes.
Councilman Thompson's absent.
Motion carried. Next item tonight is item 4, another public hearing to consider and take action on the disposition of the mortgage and the pledge of certain properties. Do we have anybody signed up?
No, sir.
We open the public hearing this evening. Is anyone here would like to speak? Anyone here would like to speak? Is there anyone here would like to speak? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Turned over to council.
Mr. Mayor, I move the town council approve the disposition, mortgage, and pledge of certain property of the town of Front Royal, commonly known as the Town of Front Royal Police Department headquarters, consisting of 5.2399 acres, more or less, tax map number 20A1-3-7, located at 900 Monroe Avenue, Front Royal, Virginia, 22630, as further described in that certain deed of trust prepared in connection with a loan from United Bank, a Virginia banking corporation, to the town of Front Royal in the original principal amount of $8,483,001.15.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just happy to see this finally get over the finish line and be done and not on our agenda anymore.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Have a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Seelock,
Yes.
Councilman Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilman Gillespie,
Yes.
Councilman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman Meza,
Yes.
Councilman Thompson's absent.
Motion carried. Next item tonight is item 5, council approving supplemental resolution authorizing approval of a loan in the amount of $8,483,001.15 and rescind previous resolutions
I move that town council approve the attached supplemental resolution authorizing and approving a loan in the original principal amount of $8,483,001.15 made by United Bank as lender to the town as borrower to refinance the police department headquarters, authorizing and approving the loan documents prepared in connection with the loan, authorizing and approving certain town officials to execute and deliver the loan documents, authorizing and approving the granting of a security interest in and lien on certain property owned by the town, and authorizing other necessary actions in connection with the foregoing, and the approved resolution dated October 26, 2020 be hereby rescinded.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, just for clarifications, this was just to clean up the language from original resolutions and to finalize the payments of the loan documents, correct?
Okay, great. Anyone else? A roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Seelock,
Yes.
Councilman Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilman Gillespie,
Yes.
Councilman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman Meza,
Yes.
Councilman Thompson's absent.
Motion's carried. This item tonight is item 6 of our agenda. Resolution for the state of good repair primary extension local paving program on North Royal Avenue and North Commerce Avenue to East 6th Street. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move the council approve a resolution of support for submission of the Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT, Stated Good Repair and Primary Extension Paving Program application for the mill and overlay of North Royal Avenue from North Commerce Avenue to East 6th Street at a total project cost of $117,448. And if acceptable, VDOT will reimburse the town 100% of the cost as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? When do you think that'll be accomplished?
We wouldn't find it till next fall.
Will it be next fall?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Seelock,
Yes.
Councilman Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilman Gillespie,
Yes.
Councilman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman Mazza,
Yes.
Councilman Thompson, absent.
Motion carried. Next item tonight is council approval FY '21 budget amendment and interfund transfer for employee bonuses. Matt, I'll turn that over to you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm going to turn much of it over to Mr. Wilson. But in short, the CARES Act afforded governing bodies to allocate funds for hazard pay to certain employees. As you may remember, in the original paperwork that we submitted to the county, actually paper revisions, various revisions, in most of those instances, or in all those instances, we had a hazard pay allowance put in. In light of the recommendation from the county as to how they wanted us to account for the CARES Act expenditures, we decided to allocate the police department salaries and wages in an effort to make it easier for the accounting purposes to receive money back from the county from the CARES Act. In conversations with staff and trying to determine, how do we want to handle the hazard pay? Do we want to get it just to the hazard pay, and then who do you not give a bonus to? It was unanimously decided that the fairest way to do is just take those funds and disperse it among all staff as in the form of an employee bonus. And this is from the federal CARES Act money that we have $800,000 that we were reimbursed. There's still another $300,000 coming to us, but that's the rough summary of the background of the issue. Mr. Wilson, say anything?
No, you covered it all.
Okay.
With that background, I hear a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move the council approve an FY '21 budget amendment in the amount of $171,415 and FY '21 interfund budget transferring totaling $77,280 to allocate funds to allow a one-time bonus in the amount of $1,100 to be given to employees to show appreciation for their hard work, efforts, dedication, and support during the COVID-19 health pandemic.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to BJ, staff, and Mr. Tiedrick for working on this initiative. I think this is one that obviously takes a lot of work to figure out how to do it and how to make it fair and equitable. And I think this is one that many municipalities, particularly of our size, may just not take the time to figure out a way to be able to disperse the funds to the individuals who are having to be here every day and take care of our community. And so I know it's a lot of hard work, but I think it was worth it for our town employees. And I just wanted to thank you guys for going above and beyond to make that happen. And I think this is nice. It's a nice way to give a little bit of that to compensate them. I know, and it doesn't compensate them for all the work that they're doing on this, but I think it's a nice token of appreciation, so thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Roll call.
Vice Mayor Seelock,
Yes.
Councilman Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilman Gillespie,
Yes.
Councilman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman Mazza,
Yes.
Councilman Thompson, absent.
That concludes our regular special meeting this evening. This time we'll go into our town council work session for December the 7th, 2020. First item tonight is continue review of the FY '21 revenue and contingencies. Matt?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. You see in the report there, our revenues are still tracking very strong. We're short in just a few of the areas. Lodging taxes we have been, as well as fines and forfeitures and rental vehicle in particular. You'll notice also the electric sales are down 272,000, but we are fairly strong in water sales, and we're still a little short in sewer. Mr. Wilson, is there anything you wanted to?
Just to add to what Matt said there, the electric sales are tracking a little below budget. It's normal for this time of year for us to track below budget. It's just one of the curb months. Last year at this time we were at $181,000 below budget, so we're a little bit more below that, but not much to be concerned over at this point in time, still early. Same with sewer sales. Sewer sales are tracking $112,000 below budget. Last year we were $143,000 below budget, but we picked those back up in the spring months. Again, we're just kind of tracking things, nothing to be highly concerned of at this point in time, just keeping our eye on things.
And local sales tax, you'll notice the local sales tax is $62,000 above budget, which is, I think the community needs to be commended. I know that we as a governing body have made great strides and efforts, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, to promote small business, shop local initiatives, and I think it's showing that people are spending the money locally based upon our local sales tax.
Yes, sir.
I see that our delinquent utility accounts are going back up again.
Yes, sir. We did discontinue disconnects mid-November per the budget bill by the Commonwealth of Virginia. Hence why you see that creeping up again. Just in a couple weeks of time, you see what it can do when we don't have disconnections.
Yeah, so quite a bit, 66,000.
Yes, sir. Just in a couple weeks there. So hence why we requested that council approve the exemption for the ban earlier this evening. And along with this, the recommendation from staff is to go ahead and move forward with the release of contingencies of the amount of $347,000 to allow for employee raises and the final year implementation of the compensation study.
Have you done any projections as far as if we don't get this approved on this disconnect thing, how much it might be by spring?
Well, just if you look at the previous trend, just from let's see here, from our normal from March to May, there was an 81% increase in the receivables. So just that alone, we increased roughly $450,000. If we were to go into January, February, March without disconnections, it would be considerably more. I would estimate that we would top 1.2, 1.5 million in receivables.
Wow.
50,000 in 1 month.
Yeah. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, the General Assembly didn't do us any favors with
Right.
this. They exempted Dominion Power, but as far as how we're gonna address it, I know BJ probably spent 12 hours this weekend alone working on this.
Did they exempt anybody like Lynchburg and?
The only exemption was Dominion Power.
Just Dominion Power?
Just Dominion Power.
That's unusual.
Do you have any sense of whether or not it's individuals waiting to see if they're going to get additional funding or payments or debt forgiveness or something along those lines, or just people just deciding I'm just not paying my bills anymore and that's what's going to happen?
What we've seen back during the March, April, and May was that we were not able to do disconnects, so account holders were just holding on to the money. As soon as we announced we were going to start disconnects, the payments came in.
That's what I was wondering, yeah.
So, and that, I believe that's what we're seeing this time around, but it's a little bit too early for me to tell.
Sure. Well, what I guess what I'm getting at with that is if it got up to 1.2 million, we wouldn't expect that all of those accounts, remain delinquent and just don't pay. There's some that will probably, or a good chunk of them will probably jump in and pay, but we'll still have a higher bad debt ratio than we have in the past.
Correct. That's what I would anticipate, but
What about so let's look at the contingencies for electric. There's 675,000. So is that truly what we have in contingency? So let's just say the sales continue to trend past 275,000 less, went down to 500,000. Do we really have that offset in contingencies right now?
yes, that is the offset in contingency right now for the fiscal year 21 budget. That's above and beyond anything that we have in the reserve balances.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I kind of sense that's where you were heading. So yes, this is just for the fiscal year 21 budget.
Now, that will also be adjusted in the event you do approve at the next meeting. Well, I actually don't need at the next meeting, but if you do approve 347 of that, some of that is in the electric, so that will come out of that.
The 347 is coming out of all the contingencies combined.
Yes, correct.
Right?
Correct.
All right.
BJ, do we know how long it'll be before we hear about the exemption?
The exemption,
Yeah, I mean,
we just approved the exemption earlier this evening.
right, okay, I'm saying, so we don't have to do anything other than that.
We have to provide notification. We have to provide notification to all accounts that are over 30 days and offer them a payment plan ranging from 6 to 24 months, amortizing it. We have to send that notification out, and then once we've sent that notification out, we can resume disconnection.
Right, okay.
Timeline is 60 days
Um,
thereafter.
I anticipate we'll have those out this week. We'll have the letters out this week.
Yeah, we're lightning fast. I mean, we've been,
I've been all over this.
yeah, lightning fast.
And it was also 60 days based on his ending the COVID.
Yes, that's for the moratorium if we didn't have the exemption. We would have to wait 60 days upon the end of the state of emergency in order to resume disconnects. Since we just did the exemption, or approved the exemption, we can resume as soon as we send out the notification for the payment arrangements.
Okay.
It's, Mr. Hicks brought a good point. This is for residential customers and in the application to business.
The exemption is for residential customers. The payment arrangements will be available for businesses as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the 347,000, mostly for our new town manager, Mr. Hicks, and our councilman-elect, Mr. McFadden. We had done a compensation study over 3 years ago for our town employees, and one of the things, I'm going to sound like a broken record now for those who've heard this, but one of the things that I've been passionate about when we did the compensation study and the council at the time committed to it was that we didn't fall off of that wagon 2 years in or 1 year in or whatever. So we gave a compensation bump to bring people up to market rates in year one, and the skepticism was going to be council's going to change over, something's going to happen, and we're not going to continue that trajectory. Thus, the pay scales would fall behind, and our pay scales are already relatively low, or already kind of falling behind. But we implemented year one, we implemented year two, we put year three on hold. COVID happened. And we've been kind of dragging our staff along on whether or not we're going to fund the merit increases or not merit increases, I'm sorry, the
Compensation study.
the compensation study to right size the pay. And so I've been pretty passionate about trying to figure out how to make it happen. This is different than a bonus, different than merit increases and everything else like that. This is getting people to market level with their pay. And one of the things that I wanted to see happen before I got off council for this term, before the new members come on, is that we fully fund that and get it into place so that our employees have that peace of mind that is there. I know this is only a 3-year compensation study. I think that it's best practice for us. We should do this at least every 5 years to understand where our pay grades are and making sure we're keeping up with market rates and then make a commitment to it. So I'm happy that, last thing, 347, if you take time to look through our contingency dollars, there's still a significant amount of contingency dollars that we have in there in the case that one of our enterprise funds or even our general fund starts falling behind our projected revenue amounts. So I appreciate, again, Matt and BJ working on ensuring that we have the available funds to fully fund the 347,000. And it looks like we're going to be moving forward in that direction, and I'm happy that that's the case and that closes out that 3-year compensation study.
Anyone else? Mr. Hicks, Do you have something you want to say, or chime in when you feel like it?
Or I was gonna
I mean, sort of shunning you, I guess, to say, asking Matt to take care of most of the things, but is there anything you want to say, anything about this particular item, since it is a budget item?
At this point, I don't have a lot to say about it, other than, I mean, well, I do know, looking at it, just first with any of the comp studies and stuff, I think that's always good. Recognizing I haven't seen the report when it comes to the salary compression issue and how that addressed that, but that's something that would be interesting, but no, I think it's.
Yeah, that's why I said it, because I didn't want you to think that it was also, hey, we just randomly came up with 350,000 that we're gonna fund
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
It was part of a study that we had with it.
Yeah. All right.
Any other discussion? Okay, well, then item 2 on our agenda. Vesta upgrade project, project call and radio recording servers. Matt, you want to take that, or you want to turn it over to Chief?
Yeah, I'm gonna start with Chief. Chief, would you start here, and Todd's gonna chime in from a technical perspective.
Absolutely. Mayor, members, council, this item has come to us, it's a component of the upgrading of the phone system that we're doing now. What these recorders do, it's actually 2 servers. One records the telephone calls made to and from the police department, the other one records the radio traffic. And the reason behind that is oftentimes when calls are made in and then the existing radio traffic, there can be very important documentary evidence that are contained within those calls and within that radio traffic that these recorders will allow us to memorialize should they ever be needed for a criminal prosecution or an administrative investigation even. They've got a recorder in place. IT Director Jones has advised us that that recorder, I guess it was installed, I want to say, I might be speaking out of turn, I want to say 2014. And he started noticing some error messages with the server and recognizing that it could be reaching end of life and didn't want it to fail with the addition of the new equipment that we're putting in. So he's found a couple solutions that will integrate with the new systems, the new radio system that we have and the new phone system that we're converting over to now. And he'll be available to answer any of the technical questions. I'm kind of more of the user end of things. But do you have any questions about the recorders and their purpose for the police department?
Just to add one point, from a funding perspective, this is for the secondary, we're wrapping this into the secondary PSAP. And again, the plan would be to take it out of the CARES Act funds that we received from the federal government.
Todd and Alyssa have done a phenomenal job, BJ, identifying a vendor and going through and making sure we were getting kind of the best bang for our buck with this project. So my hat's off to them. I appreciate all their hard work on the project.
Any other questions?
Not if it's being funded through the PSAP.
Exactly.
I don't really care.
Right.
So with that, I guess, just put that on the regular agenda.
Yes, sir. We're hoping to get it on the 14th. We're still in the process of trying to determine how we're going to procure the item. So we may not make it until January. Todd, do you have an update on that?
Yeah, we have updated pricing. Alyssa's got that now. She's just double checking or crossing her T's and dotting her I's to make sure everything's good to go. But we should have everything ready for the 14th.
So okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you ask Mr. Llewellyn to come in? We'll see him here somewhere.
He's out.
Something in the hall there.
Okay, our third item tonight is FTAD request for a 1-year extension to submit development plans. Matt, do you want to take that, or your planner? Where's Tim?
I'm happy to fill council in. I think the summary there is self-explanatory. We extended it about this time last year for 1 year. It's up for renewal if we decide to extend it again. We'd have to vote on it at the next meeting.
Okay. Any discussion? Anything you want to say, Todd?
No, this is part of what's been going on for the last few years, is having to renew it annually. I will say there's been quite a bit of progress made in the development of the property. We are working right now with a particular potential buyer, and it's probably the best opportunity we've had in quite a while. So I think we're finally at the point where we're going to be able to bring somebody in and hopefully get them to do a good job for us.
Jim, you have any?
No.
Does anybody want to discuss it any further, or just want to add it to the agenda? We can put that under the consent, I'm assuming, yeah.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Next item is item 4, Happy Creek Rehabilitation Project discussion. Mr. Means, I think, is out in the hallway. Someone has to come in. At this time, I'm going to turn this one over to our Vice Mayor, Bill Seeloff, and he's the one who put it on the agenda.
I'll put it on agenda with Councilman Gillespie and Councilman Cockle backing me, because we need 3. I've been in discussions with Mr. Means and Mr. Mark Fondolf. There are a lot of easy words thrown around this community right now. Public trust, illegal, notifications, et cetera, et cetera. My concern is, I've listened to the town manager, staff, and concerned citizens on this matter. My question was to Mr. Farndorf, and he doesn't have the answer, but 17 years have passed since work was accomplished on this section of the creek. When I began my tenure on town council, we had gone through a flooding of downtown section of the creek and businesses. I was in 17. This councilman was requested by constituents at that time to do something about it, so we put it on our goals and objectives. It was one of the main things that we accomplished as a council. Questions come to mind: was proper notice given to the public review? Yes. A revised plan on riprap has been developed to include 5 feet versus 15 feet along the entirety of the bank in this section of the creek. 5 feet sections are needed to eliminate future eroded sections. 15 feet sections along the bank is eliminated neglected erosions. And that's very evident. Mr. Fondolf and I had an extended phone call on this today. Emails stating artificial rocks do not beautify this section of the creek. They aren't artificial rocks, they're riprap. So, we're dealing with public trust and misinformation. Did the tractor in the creek bed disturb previous laterals or fingers not presently in the creek bed? These laterals or fingers slow up the fast-moving water in the creek bed and provides life for the creatures in our creek. With that said, when I inspected that on that fatal day, walking that creek bed, there's only 2 fingers in that whole system right now. Now, what happened to the remainder? Supposedly, I heard from everybody, oh, we used to have bunches in there. And we should have. There should be ripples, and I must say, as a hiker, former hiker, a former trout fisherman, I've fished down below Marlowe's, and my granddaughter caught her first trout right there. So I'm quite familiar with this. But they aren't there. They washed away. It was not the tractor. It's gone. The rocks were not big enough, in my estimate. And I'm not the engineer that designed the plan. What I see to be accomplished. Public needs to understand that contractor violated the provisions of cutting trees less than 4 inches and must be rectified to restore public trust. Public trust thinking section repairs were not needed when they were. It's pretty evident. All you have to do is walk the banks, you can see it. Restore public trust to plant new trees to assist in screening the traffic on Commerce Avenue. The interim town manager and our public works have advised me, yes, we plan to beautify that whole section with trees and whatever's necessary. Public review with a set of community persons who have the expertise to understand the needs, and I emphasize native grasses and trees to be planted. There need to be native grasses in that waterway. You can't just say a tree pops up. Review all the processes on public notices for future work on the Happy Creek sections. We can't let these sections of that creek go for 17 years. There's got to be a plan in place. And this council was smart enough and foresaw after the floods that something was needed down there, and that's why we took this task on. Reestablish the laterals and fingers in the creek bed. It's got to be done. And Public Works directors told me there is plans to work on the creek bed. So we ought to consider that. Now, I'm not an expert, I'm just a fisherman that knows a little bit about how to cast a line in the water. So native grasses to be included in the creek bed to assist vegetation life also is needed. And I keep emphasizing that. Don't focus on the banks. Don't focus on trees. A mistake by a contractor, whether he understood the contract or not, the town, I feel, should be readily acceptable to correct that problem, and I think we are. Now, in discussion with Mr. Means, he'd like to give us 3 minutes of what he thinks should be done, and I fully recognize that staff and the town manager should work with a small group, not 17 of them, 2 or 3 that are experts in this area, what grasses should be put in, what types of trees, and forget this walkways down to the creek bed and all that. That's a safety hazard. That's one of the things that's been thrown out, and I disagree with that. But planting trees and grasses and getting somebody that knows, I know locust trees. I burn locusts, so I know what that is. I like burning locusts. But don't ask Bill Seelock what type of tree to put in that riverbank, because I don't know. So I would recommend that we have a small group set with the Public Works and the town manager and help devise the plan. Because the riprap is going to happen. It's not fake rock. It's got to happen or the bank will erode. Mr. Means is over there shaking his head.
Positive. One more thing. Over on the bank where the bike path is, that is some severe erosion going on right now. It's within a couple feet, it looks like, of that bike path. So, their riprap is
15 feet, yes.
without question, without question.
Mr. Means is standing here, and I'm going to violate one of the rules that I have fought for since I've been on this council for 4 years. That work sessions are work sessions. But I don't have the expertise that this individual has. He wants to give us 3 minutes because he's been in contact with somebody else that has a little more knowledge than himself. I would ask the council to approve giving him 3 minutes to carry this discussion a little further.
You already did, though.
Everybody okay with that?
I'm fine with that. I would agree. Thank you.
Okay, David, I think you have the floor.
Okay,
3 minutes.
yes, and I'll give you an hour at
I know
any
you
time.
will. I want 3 minutes.
But, separate from this. So,
Bless you.
I just want you, Todd, is there a way to turn that on?
Matt, do you know
Yeah,
what jump drive I gave you?
There's no jump.
Wasn't able to get the jump drive, because I have the monitor on, we weren't able to show, I'm not able to show it right now, so, sorry.
Okay, that's how I was gonna do my 3 minutes, because it tells a story.
Can you?
And I've got
I can pull it
49
up.
pages, and I really only wanted to show 15, because they're the ones that are critical. you're exactly right. And Robbie, you're correct. You need, although what I didn't hear was, you need a plan to do some of these things. You know, there's a lot of dynamics going on with water. And you get moving water. I know on the submission to the DEQ, it was greater than 20 square miles of watershed. Well, I did the outline, I did the takeoff, and it's 14.7 square miles. Brings it under the curve. So now you've got a slightly reduced watershed. But you have to be careful. You can't control hurricanes. You're going to get flooding. Half the town, the business, the older section, is in the floodplain. And it's going to be hard. If you raise the banks, you are concentrating that water. It's going to hit the Shenandoah and hard. So what I wanted to do, what I had really great slides for, was to show you some of the differences and some of the calculations made and some of the reasoning that goes behind why do we do certain things certain ways. And it's called natural stream design. And it's pretty much based on the Roskin Geomorphic Stream Design Challenge. So, and
Do you
it's,
want me to hold that for you while you point it out?
oh, yeah, well, I get crazy with my hands.
I was gonna say, I'd be glad to.
So I'm running out of time, but maybe.
What would be the acceptable plan? That's what,
Well, here's what you need. You need. You really need to do a cross-section study. You need to do a slope analysis. You need to do where are these structures going to go that are going to do the best for the design of the stream. You can't be putting rock veins just out in the stream just because they're something to do. You have to get it so if the water's cutting into the bank where that big old sycamore is and undercutting the bank, that's where you'd have to apply some of these rock veins. And you do it in a way so the water pressure hits it. It actually spins around the outside of it, and you're not going to have that erosion. You don't have to go 15 feet. I think that certain area is probably about 4.5, 5. But that's what I'm saying. This is a lot of rock. Way more than 38,000. So I'm just thinking, where's that coming from? Because thank you, Robbie, but Robbie did give me the bid sheet for the rock that the town has awarded to the contractor. And we're talking a lot of rock, up to 4,000 tons. That's a lot more. It's closer to $100,000. So what I'm thinking, the rock that has been selected that's currently at the Prospect Street Bridge is called Class 1 rock. And there's certain gradations of that. And you have to know that with certain volume and velocity, that rock can actually move. I recommend that you go down to 8th Street. Start at that low water bridge there and walk towards the Shenandoah River on the west side of the bank. And as you're walking, look into the water. There are blocks that are 6,000 pounds. That's what you need, Class 3 riprap. No fooling. And otherwise, I think it's a waste. The rock that you're talking about that did the structures up between Prospect and South, I remember that. I was there. They had some extra time on the docket where they could bring that machine up and do some work up in that stretch because they had spent so much time, or were so fast at what they did down
downstream?
East of 8th, going downstream of 8th Street, that they brought the equipment up, but they didn't have the money for the rock. So what they did use was, they used what was on site and placed things. On-site rocks were river rocks. They're rounded. They roll. You get enough volume, and those things are down the river. There's, yes, 2 structures that are called, they're a V shape, but there's, if you know what you're looking for, there's 5 more structures, but they're kind of spread out. But that's because they've been rolling down the river. So either you put some flat side on them, and sometimes you have to actually double stack them. In fact, where those sycamores are, even one 6,000-pound rock, you're going to have to play around and make sure you have a good base, put the next rock on top so you bring it up to your grade. But, you know, I just think this wasn't thought through. You know, there's so many good ways to do things. And it might cost a little more. Certainly design-wise it would, because, I mean, it's like you measure twice, cut once. So before we even go in the stream, before we even cut a tree, before we do anything, let's have a plan in paper. Robbie, I don't know how you could do it. I mean, you just looking at the ENS plan that CHS sent back, you know, that's a quality plan. And that really gives you something to work with. I mean, before, it was tragic. So, I'm sorry, I get emotional because this is my world, and I do.
May I summarize for you then?
Mr. Means, are these the rocks that you're talking about?
Yeah.
8th Street?
Yeah, those are some of them.
So I shared this with council. I went down, Mr. Means met with Councilman Gillespie and I the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and took us down below 8th Street in Gertrude Miller Park. It's like beyond, closer to like between Fantasyland and by the softball field. And these particular rocks were the ones that I remembered. It's not the best pictures, but I sent you all some. What was, as you pointed out, they were like flat. And this picture really doesn't do it justice. These don't look very big. They were huge, weren't they, Gary? Like, I mean, like people size. And that's what was holding the bank in place, correct?
Yep.
And I believe, I'm gonna say his name wrong, Mr. Frondorf, how do you, is it?
Frondorf.
Frondorf, Mr. Frondorf. I believe he told us that day that this was part of a project from the former Virginia Game and Inland Fisheries, right?
Yeah.
So they, I believe, financed or funded this,
Yep.
correct?
Yes, you're
So I'm imagining these rocks would cost a lot more than what our plan is currently.
Yes, currently, yes.
So, and I don't know, Mr. Frondorf at the time mentioned that maybe, it's not called Game and Inland Fisheries anymore. What's it called now?
Department of Wildlife and Resources.
Right. So I don't know if that's something that they would be willing to, I don't know if they would be willing to find some money in their budget to help us. Like, I would imagine those rocks would be perfect by that tree that's kind of falling in over there on the project we're talking about. Anyway, I shared these pictures with all of you all as an email. I apologize you wouldn't have gotten them until we were here because I went down in the dark and took them before we came down here tonight. So anyway, I just wanted to share with you all that those were the rocks that he was referring to, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I want to reemphasize that the RIP-RAP program is going on forward.
Yes.
But I'm recommending that yourself, Mr. Frondorf, or some public residents that are specialists rather than a councilman meet and start deciding how we put grasses in the creek bed, how we plant the trees, what type of trees, that kind of thing, and get that bank, the upper bank, the landing, I think is what we call it, get that back in order, and especially that area where the cut trees, the contractor,
South End.
yeah, where he was terminated from doing business. So, I mean, those things have to be said. Public trust is important to us, and that's why I asked for him to have
Do
some
you
time.
want Dave and our new town manager, Mr. Hicks, And probably Robbie work together and try to put up a committee and let that committee, especially Dave in your case, because you've been on the tree stewards and all that for years. Is that what your plans would be?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jim?
Well, before we stand up a committee, I think I want to clearly understand the purpose of that committee. First off, thank you very much, Mr. Means. I mean, I know this is a passion of yours, and you've been coming here for years to help us with this, so I completely respect that. And in the interest of what Bill said about making sure that there is that public trust, I want to reiterate something just to make sure that we're all on the same page, because I thought what I heard you say is that we didn't have a plan at first when we were going after this, and so
I can clarify that.
right. So I just wanted to say that I think there was a very clear plan that was designed by engineers. You disagree with engineers, but we used engineers to design the plan and submit it through the appropriate governmental agencies. Is that correct, Robbie, or am I missing something there?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the reason why I'm saying that is just because I don't want it to sound like, you know, a few town employees are in a back room and like, hey, this is gonna look awesome, let's just cut the trees down and throw some rock in here. That's not what happened. But I understand that you would prefer to see a different design than what's being done, and prefer to use some of the natural habitat around there than the way that it's moving forward. So all I'm saying is, if we're still moving forward on those plans, unless I've heard council say we're gonna pause, pay another engineer to come in and redesign the plan, if we're not doing that, then what are we asking for the committee to do?
Just what I just said, grasses and trees and improvements.
After the
along.
fact.
The riprap's going in.
Yeah.
We got a date on it yet?
Well, we're hoping to get the ENS approval tomorrow or Wednesday.
It has been changed, and the riprap that's being installed was based on the engineering plan that on the velocity of the creek, when it is flooding, that won't take the riprap away. So that needs to be stated, because it was done correctly. Now, you've got a reinforcement plan, which we should take into consideration, that's all I'm saying.
I'm okay with helping to improve the banks and everything else like that, and having citizen committees to help with that. I have no problem with that at all. I just don't, with the interest that there's been around this, I don't want to have the false expectations that all of a sudden it's changing and we are going to redesign the plan and everything else like that, because unless there's more funding.
There's already been a change in the plan, and you readily recognize that, 5 feet versus 15.
Yeah.
It's not every spot along there needs 15 feet.
I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that, you know, because I don't want to start walking down that road and somebody say, you know, I heard you guys are stopping that, or I heard we're redesigning it, or, you know, something along those lines.
The plan's moving on.
And Mr. Seelock, and council, I have Mr. Huffman from CHA on the line. He's on the WebEx, or on the Teams meeting, in the event anyone had any questions specifically for him.
Mr. Means, you raised your hands a couple of times. You were going to respond to what Jake said.
Oh, well, I must agree with Mr. Gillespie and say, yes, certain on that east side, that's got to be pretty quick. That's all filled in for the road that was built, you know, back 20 years ago. But definitely, it's going to go. And it's going to go, with that path, we'll go with it. So, I agree.
Yes,
There's no way you can't do it.
And,
Okay.
just what.
But you don't have to do the full run. I mean, you don't have to
Yeah.
go 150 feet. You can do the areas that are right up next to the bank and to the path.
I think David has a few good ideas. One, how to control that flow, and I think, you know, we should listen, you know. If you go down to the ballpark on 8th Street, and you'll be able to see what the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries did as far as the big boulders, like Lori was saying, to help control some of that erosion and slow that water up. I mean, that's all me personally that I'm asking is to take some of those ideas from, you know, Mr. Means and the certain other professionals who came in and talked,
I'm glad you're saying
Yeah.
that, because that's the part I'm getting confused
Yeah.
on. Are we looking at redesigning something than what our original plan was? You're talking about flow, or are we talking about making sure that we have the vegetation, natural habitat, and everything else enhanced along the sides? Because what you just talked about, I think, is gonna
No.
require re-engineering, right?
Well, no, I
No.
mean, it's not gonna require
Well,
re-engineering.
I don't think we can just
I
change
just,
what we're doing.
Yeah, that'd be a question for Mr. Huffman.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
All right?
Hey, Lawrence? Lawrence, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. I think the question is, if you wanted to put a vein or some kind of a rock in the creek itself in order to slow down the flow, it makes
In different bank sites, right?
makes sense.
Different
Does that
rock.
require, will VMRC and DEQ and US Court, does that require an amendment, or can we just do that administratively?
No, we should be able to do that administratively. The Corps and the VMRC permits provide the permission to work within the stream channel itself. And the original intent was to use those approvals to establish the erosion control measures, the riprap and stone along the bank to prevent the erosion. But there's nothing that would prevent us from, at that time, adding additional rock for rock veins that could help create or improve the habitat. I think the important part is just to ensure that we do what we can as soon as we can to stabilize the bank, particularly in the condition it is now.
Great.
What about, so none of that requires more engineering or additional cost to us?
Well, maybe additional cost, slight cost, maybe for the stone but I don't think it's something that's gonna be outside our capability of paying.
Okay.
If I could suggest, Mr. Seelock, with your permission and council's permission, if I could suggest, and town manager, Mr. Hicks, if the committee does get established, I think it's gonna be vital to have Mr. Huffman, who designed or submitted the permits. I think it's important for the town to have that level of expertise as well. He also has access to the engineers that submitted the ENS plan as part of CHA. So I think, and I know I speak for council, and I've said this the last two meetings where this was discussed, council never had the intention of not being a community partner in this project. We had every desire to make it a beautiful gateway. You think about it, to my recollection, I haven't been around many creeks in the Shenandoah Valley, at least where I've walked and hiked, that you have two walkways on both sides of the creek. Usually there's a walkway on one side, it's a greenway, and it's, the goal and the intention, I know when we talked about it during our goal setting, is to make it preserve, mitigate the flooding, preserve the erosion and the sediment disbursements, etc., but also make it a beautiful gateway right there at the entrance of our community. And if we can get a couple manageable members of the community to get involved and get Mr. Huffman and try to figure out what areas we can do something slightly different. The work's going to start. And Robbie, do you see any issues with that? I see no. Mr. Hicks, do you think that's a good way to move? It's your call.
Yeah, I agree with it, but one of the things I think we all need to look at is it has approved permit, right? And going back, and with that approved permit, what does allow and what needs to be changed based on that alone? Because I'm hearing multiple different things. One, the riprap and the size of the rock, or another means, not necessarily the size of the rock, to kind of minimize some of the erosion, but then we need a planning plan. That's what I'm understanding, the type of trees and the vegetation.
Well, that's easy enough. That's in my head already.
It is, but the sequence of how you go about doing it and the construction piece is very critical, and the
Yes.
timing, that's the key thing to it.
Yes, you're right.
So I think we could do it. I gotta get a little bit brought up to speed, because my understanding, all the agencies approved the plan that we have.
Right, I'm not expecting to change that plan.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we have the thought process in mind, because you've got 3 miles more,
Yes,
and that's a lot of distance.
yeah,
Some of it's county property, but boy,
yeah.
just by doing this one little section is it's critical, because it's just above downtown.
Yeah.
We're going to lose control. That's what I'm worried about.
So I think it's doable. I just want to make sure although I heard, that we could amend the existing permit and stuff, I mean, we just still gotta be cautious about that, because it all depends on who you ask about that, and I don't wanna get the town in a situation where we're making these changes, and we really don't have the approval from the appropriate agencies to make the changes until we run it through. So I would think, somehow we would have to find out what our limitations are in any of the amended changes. That's my thought, but I think we can do it. I guess the time frame for this committee to meet and come back with recommendations, what time frame are we looking at?
2 days.
Just 2 days, yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe it'll be a Christmas present. So that's something we do have to carefully look at. And I still don't get the sense, and I guess after we meet, Robert, we can identify realistically.
We had a meeting in the middle of the day, so I can probably answer a lot of that for you.
All right.
Yeah, and really to integrate some of the Roskin structures in with this, you could do it, but it takes a certain calculations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Mr. Means, appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, I really appreciate you letting me talk.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Can you email the presentation?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to mention one more thing about that. One of the reasons why I took these pictures and shared with them is because some of the feedback I had been getting from citizens were about just the look and the beauty. And we all know the project's not done, and so it's kind of hard to make a call on something. But one thing that I liked when I went down to that other area on the other side of 8th Street is that those rocks, they seem to blend in with the environment. Would you agree, Gary? They were just, like, you didn't really...
They were up against the bank.
They were blend in, they were kind of the color of the environment, and I think that part, if people are looking for an aesthetic part and beauty or something that just doesn't look institutionalized, that maybe those rocks, we could entertain those. I mean, as long as they're within our budget, but anyway,
They're a good spot for a 5-6-year-old to sit down and
Well,
catch a trout.
I'll tell you right now, those rock right there, compared to riprap, you're probably looking at,
20 times?
oh my God, yeah. I mean, there's no way in the world you want to touch those rocks for the same price or not even close to the riprap.
And
You gotta-
just
you
move
gotta
them
come in
around.
some kind
It's-
of
Yeah,
brand.
I mean,
crazy.
yeah, and it would take probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 times.
Times the money.
Yeah, well, no, not the money, I'm talking about the time to set them.
And expertise probably. We
Yeah.
may not have the expertise in-house.
And you would probably have to, yeah, so it's almost like setting a retaining wall.
well, maybe when the committee meets, that's something that they talked before about how this other organization helped pay for that portion down at Happy Creek. And I don't know enough about this, but why would they be willing to pay for portions of it down there but not up there?
Oh, the trout fishing
Yeah.
down there.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that's it. All right, well,
We can have it all the way up.
yeah. I was gonna say, we can-
Yeah, it would look
we can
nice,
stop
wouldn't it?
some trout on the other end if we have to, if that gives us some money.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, real good.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to say,
So how do you want me to contact you, or will you contact me?
Contact.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dave.
I just wanted to say thank you to Councilman Seelock for his outline of events. I thought that was really clear and concise on some of the feedback that we received and how we responded to it in public, so thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. You gotta
Okay.
listen to staff and you gotta listen to citizens. So, get the real story.
Our next item tonight, is anybody got anything you want to discuss this evening?
I just would like to say welcome to Mr. Stephen Hicks. Glad to have you here. And I know this isn't one of our public meetings, it's more of our work session, but since it was kind of a hybrid, I just wanted to say that it is a long process in working through and trying to find the right individual. And I'm pretty happy with this council and the way we went about it. It was tough. We all had some definite, strong opinions about who we wanted to see take that seat. And I think most people are aware by now that we went through a first round, narrowed it down, and I think our guts told us that it wasn't the right person collaboratively. And when we first did our Zoom call with Mr. Hicks and got off the line with him, this entire group was like, man, that's a solid candidate, and we can't wait to meet him in person. So we knew when we did our first Zoom call that you were going to come to our town and we were going to interview you. We also know that you had other opportunities and that you put them on hold to find out if it was a good fit for yourself to work for this town and with this town. We really appreciate you putting those on hold and giving us a shot. When Mr. Hicks came to interview, it was a really good interview process. We enjoyed having an opportunity to have a meal with him, sit down and ask more in-depth questions in person. Mr. Hicks was a clear front runner for the, I think I can speak on for this group, but clear front runner for the entire group. His experience, his education, what he's able to bring to the table, his demeanor, professionalism, how he interviewed. And he has some tough questions. He's not naive to the fact that it's been a bumpy few years, but was up to the challenge. And so I just wanted to give a little bit of a brief background on that now, since we can talk about it and we can make public that Stephen Hicks is our new town manager. We really appreciate you going through the process. Really proud of the council for the hard work that they put in to finding the right fit and the patience and prudence that they exhibited in not jumping for the first person just to fill a seat, but finding the right person, which I think we did with you. And so I hope that your onboarding goes smooth. And with that, I wanted to say thank you to our interim town manager, Mr. Matt Tiedrick. It's starting to phase out. Despite some public opinion, it's been a little bit of arm twisting to keep Matt here. It's been a tough road, and I think that Matt has done an absolutely tremendous job weathering the storm and helping us keep on the path that this council wanted to stay on. And honestly, and this is the part that I really wanted to emphasize, we wouldn't have had the ability to be patient and work through our town manager interviewing process to find the right individual if we didn't have the confidence in the individual who is keeping the seat warm for the next person. And Matt just did a tremendous job doing that, which allowed us that opportunity to interview and bring you on, Mr. Hicks. And so I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Tiedrick for persevering and working with us as we started to work through our interview process. For those of you who don't know, even after our first time through our first round, we were kind of frustrated as a group, and I'm wondering how that was going to work and how Matt was going to respond, because obviously we didn't hire a new town manager, and Matt was great. He said he was ready to step aside when we find the right person, but find the right person. Don't just hire somebody just because. And so, Matt, thank you very much for affording council the time, for caring so much about your town and your community that you would allow us to go through that process. And then for making yourself available to Mr. Hicks for the transition. He has a lot of experience. I'm sure he's going to pick up really quick to hit the ground running. But it's always nice to have somebody be able to pass on that baton and be able to give you that information. So thank you for taking the time to continue to stay with us and help make that a smooth transition for Mr. Hicks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, Stephen, I can tell you one thing. He got a phone call today, and I said, is he there? If you're not, I was leaving the golf course, and I was headed to Durham.
I'm here.
We're glad to have you. It did take us quite a few rounds. We listened to you. I echo what Jake has said. We knew you were the one, but we went through the process.
Thank you.
And extended contract, 2 o'clock in the morning, reading line by line, Mr. Napier, every line of the contract. When Matt came to us, we were lacking goals and objectives. Goals and objectives are important to any organization that I've ever been in. And I preached that for 2 years, almost 2 years, and never got anywhere. So Matt has immediately established with us what we needed to accomplish, what the council wanted to accomplish. And I think we're probably, 99% of the goal.
Yeah, we finished the list. Everything except the afternoon.
You got a couple more weeks, guys. Get that done. Just kidding. Close out the year.
We accomplished those goals and objectives that this council set out. And hopefully the next council will do the same. You'll set your goals and objectives so they're clear and understandable, and that can be carried on to the public. But Matt was the instrument that helped us carry through, and that's why I say kudos to you, my friend.
Thank you.
You came in with your management background and managed not a hostile council, but a council that wanted to accomplish things, and we did it.
Yeah.
So to the council, I say thank each of you, because we were criticized when we didn't do something, or we were criticized when we did something, but we got it done. So thank you, each of you, and welcome.
Thank you. Again, I want to emphasize, Front Royal, even when, first of all, I've been in Virginia since I was 10 years old. And even when we would travel, we'd go to the Skyline, and we would travel the area and we'd come through Front Royal. And Front Royal is a special place. And I share with folks, they're not making any waterfront property. It's just not existing, and they're not making small towns. And there is a charm to this town that has such potential, and I'm just excited to be part of that opportunity to see how it can grow. But I look forward to it. It's something that I personally wanted to be part of. And again, Matt's been very helpful. Staff has been great with the interactions I've had. And I just look forward to working with council and making things happen and getting results. So again, thank you all for everything.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, we have two other items for general discussion purposes. Mr. Gillespie, did you want to mention something that's at the Front Royal Police Department now?
Yes.
That you've been very eager to announce?
CVS was having a grant for a drug deposit box for our citizens to bring in unused medication and have a safe place to drop it and store it. We had wrote a letter to CVS corporate, and we got approved for that drop box. Kel sent me a nice picture of it. It's in place and ready to be used right now as we speak. So anybody has old prescriptions that they need to get rid of, Front Royal Police Department.
That's great.
In the front lobby, he says.
Front lobby, yeah.
And Mr. Mayor, I wanted to get some clarification from council regarding meetings, our work sessions. I've had a couple of council members contact me about that, whether we're going to go to, how we're going to move forward in the coming year with meetings. So that's something I think council may want to discuss. I know, Jake.
Yeah. I had a question about it. Just because following the COVID cases is a daily thing for me. Unfortunately, the cases are increasing right now in our Lord Fairfax district. Hospital census are up, and so unfortunately it's happening during the holidays. And I think that more and more places are going back, I hate to say it, but going back to stronger diligence in how many people are in a room, how you're feeling before you come to the room. I know that this council feels compelled to be here in person, but at the same time, you don't realize if you're sick or asymptomatic and symptoms and everything else like that, and it is a risk. And so I think that it might be worth discussing what these future meetings look like virtually or some sort of mixed format. I hate to go virtually because I would rather be here with our new town manager and everything, but even tonight, I was having to have people outside the hall, and the keeping 6 feet social distancing, it's tough in this room. So my personal opinion is that we need to figure out some sort of creative hybrid on this, at least for the next couple months, until we see some of the surge come down. But it's surging, it's getting worse and worse and worse, and we've surpassed March's numbers that way. And so I just think that if anybody in this room who knows me knows that I'm not, hyper concerned about this, but I definitely think that now's the time to be more cautious than we were in March, if that makes sense to everybody.
So with that said, Mr. Mayor, we have on the 14th, we have 2 public hearings, right, Tina?
Yeah.
2 public hearings that's already advertised. And I believe, Doug, if I'm correct, if we were to change locations, we would have to cancel those public hearings and re-advertise if we were going to move it. Could we put a sign on the door or?
It might be possible if you, how far would you move it?
Here from Government Center?
That's close enough, you might be able to get away with it. I could look at that.
I guess the point of it is,
Well, we're only gonna have one more meeting this year.
One more meeting this year.
Monday. So you got, the council's got the rest of that time to figure out what they wanna do beginning January.
yes, sir, just need direction.
I think we
just
should-
need to continue on next Monday night as is, and then let the new council may decide on what they plan on doing.
Okay. Is there,
With Steve's help and others who.
refer back to the way we did it at the last regular meeting? Is that the direction?
I'm concerned that if we have a regular meeting that's open to the public, that there's gonna be a lot of people there. And I don't think this is the time to have that. So I don't mind having public input. I don't mind doing it virtually or anything else like that. I don't mind with 7 council members going into a giant room where we can spread out. But I don't see how, if everywhere is trying to discourage community gatherings and a lot of people in a particular room, why we wouldn't try to monitor or modify that in some way. So,
Mr. Hedges, would you feel comfortable if, like in a public meeting, if members of the public came in one at a time? Like if it was held at the government center?
we could do that, but we'd have to mark out the hallway, right? In some form or fashion, some people.
That's what we did last meeting.
Mm,
We only
no,
allowed
we
so
let-
many in, and the rest of them.
Yeah, but there was still quite a few people in the room, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't against the code.
I wasn't there.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
You're allowed so many in the room, what is it, 25? In that large room?
I think we had a little over 25, because I went down and talked
It
to
was
the
like
chief
30, we
about
had
it.
30 people in the
Yeah,
room.
It's more than 25.
And everything was pretty well, according to code, isn't that right, chief?
Yeah, I believe the magic number in that particular venue is 30 with the distance.
We marked off chairs and things like that where people were sitting?
Yes.
They had some of the rows
strings
marked
over the
off.
rows.
Yes.
We did the virtual thing back, March through June. I mean, we held public hearings then.
Yeah,
I mean, I hate doing it that way. I mean, y'all all know my feelings about it too. But,
We have a virtual plan, that's
if
why.
the numbers are increasing, it probably would be a smart idea to kind of go virtual for now.
So my hearing then, we keep the next week as we did it last regular meeting. And then for January, we start a virtual trend in the event. Is that what we're hearing?
if we can get by with, Doug will have to check, but I would say let's go virtual next week.
Yeah, I mean, if we can do it.
Okay.
I mean, what do you think, Jake?
Or if we were all in that large room and just had the public out there. We have 2 public hearings next week.
Yeah.
One's the Grand Avenue.
Yeah.
Last time, by the time you had council and staff in there, there left room for probably about 15, but between town staff, the council and press, about 15 people could come in, 12 to 15. Members of the public seemed like there was enough personnel for that.
Mayor, can I jump in here real quick? One other detail, when we did public hearings in the last time we went virtual, remember we had people submit their comments and then we read their comments into the record. We didn't have anybody necessarily speaking in the meeting. Mm-hmm. That makes a difference on how I set it up.
So, I mean, what am I hearing tonight?
Well, I think the one thing is if we were to change it, would we have to modify the advertisement or anything, correct? You were gonna look into that. despite of its virtual. My understanding, the way it reads is, if any of the agenda items or public hearings has been advertised, the location can be just modified in itself as long as they have proper notification of how you do it. The key thing is advertising in advance for the public hearings. So whatever we decide to do, that's the flexibility. I think now it's just the council making the decision. I think it's,
Well, the reason I'm saying, we only got one more meeting, let's go ahead and go through the process like we've been doing. And then 1st of January, by that time, maybe we'll know a little bit more on what's going on with the COVID. And that way the new council can decide whether they want to go virtual or whether they want to do a regular meeting like we've been having it. But I don't think we need to jump the gun at this point. We only got 7 more days. And 7 more days not gonna make that big of a deal. Let's have a regular meeting, because I'm not willing to cancel that meeting as far as the mayor's concerned. I'd rather have it just like we've been doing it, because everything worked out great last time we had the meeting there, and I don't see any reason why we can't have it this time.
And all I'm saying is that the case counts are higher. It's much more severe than what it was in March when we first did this. And I think that, given that information, that, council needs to take the appropriate steps to make sure that,
Well, I don't
that everybody is
disagree.
safe.
Is there any
On
way
that
for
part.
us to spread out even more next Monday night and just allow one person at a time come into public, or is that illegal?
So you don't have any public hearings in January at this point?
Right,
I don't know
I'm
that.
talking about for next week, because
But we
that's
do for
what,
next week, that's why I think we need to go ahead and have it next Monday night like we would have had last Monday night. And go ahead and proceed with that location, and make sure we monitor the people that come in according to state law.
what I was saying was that if we just, for the public hearing, and like just staff and council in the
chambers.
In the
And then
chamber.
the public wait outside.
And the public
Anybody wanting to
waits
come in to
outside.
speak can come
Yes,
in one
and
at a
as the
time.
public hearing, they can come in one at a time. Mr. Bianchini shared with me that's how the county is, are you saying the county keeps the staff in a separate room? You were just,
If they're close at their number in the big room, they keep additional staff over in the caucus room.
Okay.
And they come in as they're needed and go out as they're needed.
well, I was just thinking that way we're only one public person at a time. I don't know, I'm just trying to respect what Jake is saying, because you are right, the numbers are going up and there's more precautions being taken.
Steve, would you and Matt work that out?
yes.
Whichever the best way, that way that we don't have to cancel those 2 public hearings, because they're very important. And
I don't want to cancel, I was not saying that. I
Yeah,
didn't want to
no,
cancel.
we weren't talking
Yeah.
about canceling. Yeah, we're just talking about trying to do it virtual.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, let's go ahead and continue this year, that'll be done, and you all decide what you wanna do. Whether you wanna go virtual, or whether you wanna do something different.
Okay. Yes, sir, got it. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, we gotta go to a closed meeting at this time, somebody read us in?
Mr. Mayor, I move the council go into closed meeting for the purpose of assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of a public body pursuant to section 2.2, 3711.8.1 of the Code of Virginia, and 2, for the
Hey, Joe, you can stay. Joe, you can stay. You can stay, Joe.
Go ahead.
You can stay,
Yeah,
Joe.
you can stay.
Go ahead.
For the purpose of consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, specifically regarding the potential award to an appropriate entity under the provisions of Virginia Code Section 15.2-953 pursuant to Section 2.2-3711.8.8 of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
And second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Thank everybody for coming.